Hello, I'm Ray. Welcome to another podcast episode. How are you keeping? I hope you're well. I'm not. I've got a cough and a cold. Been coughing and spluttering all night. At least the weather is reasonable. 16 degrees C, 61 Fahrenheit, 59% humidity, so not a lot of water around, which is good. 1017 millibars. The flag's blowing like mad. There's a wind from the west. Blue sky, but quite a lot of clouds building up at the moment. You may already have seen the little video I did, Ray's Roaming Rants, Sompting Church, St Mary's Church, Sompting, West Sussex. Lots of emails. No, I'm not going to spend all my days going round churches with a video camera and a recorder. I'm not going to. I've only done 2 churches. I do have another one in mind, but I shall leave that for a while. Some of you are getting worried that the whole Ray's Rants thing is all going over to the church. Well, not over, you know what I mean, don't you? It's just out of interest. While the weather's nice, we like to get out and about, Trish and I take the little audio recorder. And now, of course, we've got the website, raysrants.info. You can see where we've been. You can see little video clips and photographs of wherever we've been. Quite interesting. That church at Sompting, built in the 11th century. Struth. That's old. They knew how to build things then. Of course, back in my day, I had a Brownie 127 camera, black and white stills camera. The only video of any sort, well, it wasn't video, was it? It was Super 8 Cine 8 or whatever, the little 8mm cameras that some people had. They weren't cheap, and of course you had to get the film developed. Then you needed a projector to watch it, obviously. A friend of mine did quite a bit of that back then. He was well into that, and of course then video cameras came along, so he moved over to that. I believe the 8mm cine things didn't have sound. No, they didn't, did they? They didn't have sound. And were they clockwork? I think you had to wind them up. That's going back a bit, isn't it? Well, actually, it's not. That's the 1960s, I remember him with his camera. He went on to do weddings, only as a kind of sideline, weddings and things like that, you know, with proper video gear. Talking of proper video gear, I bought myself a decent, well, I say decent, tripod for my little camera, because when I hold the camera, you know, you shake around and you're jittering and moving about. It looks awful. So I bought this tripod. I say it's a decent one. Well, it was £21. Okay. The last one I had was £9.95. And it's thin aluminium. And if there's a breeze, it's wobbling around. The one for 20 quid, 21, whatever, is a lot better. It's a lot sturdier. Of course, you could spend hundreds, can't you, on these tripods and various other devices. I forget what make my camera is. I'll tell you later. No, I won't. You're not interested. Oh, it's here in front of me. Stone the crows. Olympus something or other. I don't know what it is. I believe you can plug an external microphone into it, but I haven't got one and I'm not going to buy one. It's good enough just for the little bits and pieces I do. Isn't it amazing, though, to think when I was back in the 50s, 60s, we just had these old black and white, the Brownie 127, the Kodak film. Then you take your film to be developed and you've got these horrible little black and white photos that are blurred. Whereas these days, look at the gear, even the cheap gear like I've got. It's amazing, isn't it? My phone and my iPad take very, very good videos, as no doubt yours does. It's lovely not having to carry around a big camera and a case and all the different bits and pieces that go with it. Obviously, a video done on a phone or an iPad is nowhere near as good as a professional camera. We know someone who is a cameraman for a news channel, and the camera he's got, what is it, 50, 60,000 pounds worth? And there's a load of gear that goes with it. You know, you need to spend like 100 grand before you start getting some really good gear, it seems. But I shall stick to my 20 quid tripod and my cheap bits and pieces. It works, that's the thing. And surely it's the content that matters. As long as you can watch the thing and it's reasonable, it's the content that matters. I've called this episode School Holidays. I've no idea why. You're probably thinking, well, where's the school holiday bit? What's all this about? I don't know. It came to mind because I heard from Ray. He emailed me about school holidays. I haven't read that yet, Ray. I'm just about to answer that one. I've got to have a look through. I've got several to answer, actually. But school holidays, people say that the roads are dreadful when the kids are at school, because all the mums take them in their Chelsea tractors and their huge cars and things, and they block up the roads. Other people say nothing to do with school holidays at all. There is no difference. Well, I found a difference. We will not go out in the car during school time, in the morning before 9 o'clock. The roads are just chaos, gridlocked, dreadful. And if you're passing anywhere near a school, you just can't get there. There's cars parked all over the place, on the pavement, on junctions, just dumped, abandoned. Some of them, they just seem to be abandoned in the street, while the mums take their little ones to school. Well, not always the little ones, no, it's the bigger ones. Why teenagers, here we go, I'm going to go off on one. Why teenagers need a lift in a car to school, I have no idea. When I was a boy, I walked 15 miles to school in the blizzard conditions. No, I didn't at all. It was a mile. Actually, I think it was a mile and a half there and a mile and a half back. Sometimes I went on my bike. If it was dreadful weather, there was a bus that I could catch. Don't know what it cost, tuppence halfpenny I expect, so my parents would have paid for that. But it seems these days the kids can't walk anywhere. Or, well, I say can't, don't want to. Perhaps they can't. Perhaps because they never walk, they can't walk now. I was talking to a friend of mine on the radio, amateur radio this morning. We have a chat sometimes in the morning, see what we're doing, see what we're up to. And I mentioned something church that I'd been up there with Trish. And he said, when I was at primary school, now he's 78, so he's quite a bit older than me. When I was at primary school, he said, we walked up Church Lane, had to go across what is now the A27, very busy main road now, dual carriageway. And then we went to the church, whole class of 35 kids, and they were shown round the church. And he said, I remember that road being very busy. And I said, hang on a minute, you're going back to the late 40s. I don't think the road would have been very busy then. And he said, no, actually, as I said that, I thought, hang on a minute, it was busy to me as a little primary school kid. There were probably 6 cars in total, whereas now there are 6 cars in total every nanosecond. Back to driving again, and the roads and everything. It's a nightmare. We'll go to something church, I said to Trish. How to get there? That's not too bad. You go along the main road and turn off into Church Lane. Is it Church Lane? Whatever. Coming out of that little lane, you're on the dual carriageway. You've got to go left, right if you're in America. Don't do that here. You'll crash. You've got to go all the way to Lancing, go down into Lancing, kind of go back. And this is the trouble with the major roads these days. If we go out to the garden centre, which is west from here, we go on the main road to the garden centre, you can't get to the garden centre because it's on the north side. So you've got to go miles up to wherever, East Preston or somewhere, round the big roundabout, and then come all the way back to the garden centre. It didn't used to be like that. There were ways through, the central reservation bit, you could get through there. But of course, I suppose they blocked that off because it's so dangerous. So many idiots on the roads these days. Struth, we met one, I won't go into that. Met another idiot the other day going to the church. I don't know where he was going. He didn't know where he was going. We don't want to talk about idiots. Let's go back to when I was a boy, before computers. Now, when you went into your bank, you would deposit your money, whatever it was, say it was £5, and they'd take that, fill out your little book, stamp your book to say you'd paid it in. And what happened then? It didn't go onto a computer system, did it? It went into a ledger. Do you remember ledgers? Have you seen them? This came to mind because I saw something on telly the other day. They had this huge book, leather-bound ledger thing. You open it up, and in there, all these big pages, they've got your name, your address, obviously, your details, and then all your bank stuff in there. You put down £5 the other day, you withdrew whatever. It all had to be done by hand. A chap sitting there like Scrooge, you've seen Scrooge, haven't you, the film? He's sitting there at his desk with this big ledger in front of him, and he's filling out all the figures, what people owe him, what he's lent to various people, who's paid back what and when. And when I saw this on the telly, I just thought, that must have been a lot of work. Imagine something like the Inland Revenue, the IRS in America, isn't it? In the old days, they had to work everything out by writing stuff down on bits of paper. No calculators in the old days, all worked out in their head or on primitive adding machines or whatever they had. Quite amazing, really, to think back then. We had a big ledger in the radio and TV workshop in the office. It was called the progress book. So a telly would come into the workshop for repair. It would go into the progress book. It came in on so-and-so date. There's the customer's name and address. There's the fault there that it came in with. What's the trouble with it? And when I'd repaired the telly, I'd go to the progress book and say, the telly is finished, it's been repaired and ready to return. And you had to put the date that it was finished. And there were various other details. It was quite a system. Now, I didn't normally answer the phone because the young lady in the office would do that. But if she wasn't around, one of us would grab the phone, and I often had to do that. And a customer would say, oh, my name's Smith. Can you tell me how my telly's doing? So I'd say, yes, hang on. I'd look down the progress. Oh, look, Mr. Smith. Yes, it's ready to return. Or it's awaiting parts. Or whatever the comment in the book said. So that was quite a good system. Before we had computers. Quite amazing, isn't it? The things that we had to do by hand. I've got a calculator in front of me. Also one on my phone and my iPad and the PC, of course. But I don't need calculators anymore. I'll just say, I have to be quiet with the word. I just say, Alexa. And then say, what's 150 divided by 3.4? Something like that. And she just comes back with the answer. So I don't even have to switch the calculator on anymore. How things have changed over the years. It's amazing, isn't it? Look at that blue sky. Lovely. Wonderful. I should be out in the garden, really, not sitting here. But I love talking to you. Which brings me round to Don's email. Hello, Don. Don says, why do you do podcasts? It's quite a lengthy email. I won't go into it all. But basically, why do you do podcasts when it costs you time and money? It does take up a lot of time, Don, I must admit. I'm spending more and more time sitting in front of the microphone. And of course now with Ray's roaming rants, I'm out and about taking little videos, recording things, taking photographs. It does take a lot of time. I don't do it for the money because it costs me money, as I've said before. So I'm not making any profit out of it. Why do I do it? Because I love it. I just love chatting to you all. It's great. It's really, well, it's like a hobby. Also, when I'm gone in years to come, this will be a kind of legacy, won't it? Which may or may not be interesting, I don't know. But people might think in years to come, oh, I'll have a listen to that, this chap who was around in the 50s and 60s and 70s, see what happened then. Another reason I like doing the podcast is because when I was young, I liked listening to the old boys. I've said this before, haven't I? I go into a pub, I'm 18 years old, and I get chatting to some old boy, and he'd tell me all about the war or something else that happened decades ago. And it was interesting because obviously I wasn't there, and I was interested to listen to people that were there, their stories, what happened to them in the old days. Not just the war, but when they got married, bought their first house, had their children, and the work they did and the money they got and the dreadful wages compared to the money that we were getting in those days. I just found it all very interesting. I remember talking to one old chap in the pub. He was a Spitfire pilot in the war, and I just sat there for ages listening to him. I just found it so interesting. Far more interesting than the stuff I'm coming out with, I'm sure. Also, in a way, it's history, isn't it? Talking about things in the past, it's history. I heard on the telly the other day, we've just had D-Day, haven't we, last Thursday, and they were saying that a lot of youngsters, teens, early 20s, they don't know what D-Day was all about. They don't know anything about it. They don't tell you at school, apparently, what D-Day was. Mind you, I wasn't told what D-Day was at school. I knew, I suppose, because people were talking about it in the 50s. It had only happened a few years ago, so it was still recent news. But these days at school, it seems that it's not mentioned. When you're talking about history at school, the history teacher can't go into everything. I would have thought World War II, and World War I, should at least be mentioned. I don't know. I'm not a history teacher, so I don't know. But I suppose history teachers can't cover every single century or decade or whatever going back thousands of years. They just never get through their lessons, would they? Talking of history teachers at school, there was one kid in our class. He was a right clown. He really was. He looked up something at home in a book, and he went into the history class the next day, and he asked the teacher a question, and I forget what it was, but say, for example, what happened in the year 1226? What happened in the year 1226 with the Romans or whatever it was. It wasn't Romans. And of course the teacher was stumped. She didn't know. She was lovely, our history teacher, and I thought it was a bit mean of this chap. I mean, she can't know everything, can she? Every year you throw at her what happened then, she can't know everything. But she was stumped, and of course this idiot kid, I call him a clown, he was quite good fun actually. He said, "Oh, I thought you were meant to be the history teacher," and then she was trying to explain, "Well, I can't remember everything that happened on every date, can I?" "Why not? Well, you're a history teacher, you should know everything." Idiot he was. Anyway, she caught him out, because the next time he did this, he told our little group, and he said, "I'm going to ask her about the so-and-so date and what happened to, I don't know, Cromwell or whoever." So one of us, I think, it was Malcolm, my mate Malcolm, he went and told the history teacher. When we got into the classroom, he went and told her. When this lad stood up and he said, "Excuse me, miss, what happened on 1156 or whatever it was, I don't know, 874. And she said, yes, that was when this happened. And in fact, it was 875, blah, blah, blah. She went into the whole thing. And he just stood there with his mouth open and eventually sat down. That was brilliant. Of course, school holidays were best. I liked school holidays more than anything. I think we all did. We used to sing that song. I can't remember how it goes now. One more day in this old dump. Away be home tomorrow, something like that. Everyone loved the school holidays. I remember that last day of term, coming up to your 6 weeks school holiday. Absolutely brilliant. They had a film, they'd set up the projector in the hall, and we'd all have to sit there on the floor, cross-legged, and we'd have to watch some crummy film. We wanted to get out. It was summertime, we wanted to get home, not watch some crummy film in the main hall. And then, of course, finally the bell went, and that was it. It was stampede. Hundreds of kids flooding out of the school, streaming out into the road. Traffic has to stop. Not that there was much traffic back then, but I remember that. I remember cars stopping because there's just hundreds of us, not mooching home from school as normal. School again tomorrow. 6 weeks off. So everyone was elated, jubilant. I remember counting down the days as the 6 weeks went by. Oh no, only 1 week left. Oh dear, only 4 days left. It was awful. And of course the first day back at school after the holidays, everyone was really, I nearly swore then, feeling down, let's put it that way. Our science master, this is when I was at the secondary school, I was 12, 13. He was a funny chap. Egghead we called him because he was bald on top with kind of hair around, like a professor, hair around the sides, Egghead. Bombhead as well, we called him. He knew that, he didn't seem to care, but he was funny. He'd go all red in the face and he'd stutter and splutter and spray saliva everywhere when he's talking. He'd get really excited. And one day we were all chatting in class and he said, "Listen, don't you want to learn how to draw carbon lines across the pathway in your garden as like a burglar alarm so a bell will ring when someone steps over it?" And we're all saying, No, we don't want to know that. And he was spluttering and dribbling and red in the face. He really did go wild. Actually, I did want to know how to draw carbon lines across the path. That wouldn't have worked anyway. Drawing a carbon line with a carbon, what it was out of a battery, the old batteries, you could take them to bits and get a carbon rod out of it. And that was conductive. So if you drew a line on the ground and it was unbroken, you could actually pass electricity through it. But it wouldn't set off any bells if someone stepped on it. So he didn't know what he was talking about. One kid there was an idiot. Well, most of them were idiots. The teachers were idiots. Everyone, they're all idiots. This idiot kid said to me, because he knew I was interested in electricity and magnetism, anything like that. And he said, "You're a bright spark." And his mates laughed. And I just sort of frowned at him and said, "What do you mean, a bright spark?" "Well, you like electrical things. You're a bright spark." And at that stage, his, 3 or 4 mates looked at him. They weren't laughing anymore. And one of them said, "Yeah, what do you mean, bright spark?" So that shut him up. That was brilliant. In the late 50s and early 60s, most of us had a television at home. And we'd talk about the films or the programmes we'd seen the evening before. One thing we all seemed to watch was Rawhide. We liked the American stuff. The American cowboy films, they were fantastic. and we'd all discuss Rawhide the next day. And some of the films, was it Lassie? That programme, Lassie the dog. I think it was that. The kids in that had CB radios. They were big radios with huge aerials, but they're chatting to each other. They're out in the woods or the prairie or whatever it was called, and they're chatting to each other on the radios. Of course, we had nothing like that. And I remember we were really miffed at school, all saying, how come American kids have all got these radios? They could talk to each other and we haven't. And of course, as I've mentioned before, haven't I, listeners in Australia, I've mentioned this before. In Australia, the kids lived so far away from school, they had their lessons over radio. They could chat to the teacher could chat to them. We used to think that was wonderful. All you had to do was sit at home in your bedroom with a CB-type radio, listen to what the teacher's saying, answer her when she talked directly to you. Fantastic. We didn't have any of that. We had to go to school and sit in a classroom full of idiots. I remember standing on the playing field by the hedge, there's a main road, watching the cars drive past, with people ages between sort of late teens, onwards 20s, and I think, they're not at school, they don't have to go to school anymore. One day I'll be driving past, and I won't be here at this dump. I won't have to come here anymore. I'll be driving past in a car or a van. And before I knew it, there I was driving past in a car. The years go so fast, don't they? People say, oh, school days are the best days of your life. Of course they're not. Best days of your life, I nearly said something bad then. My foot, that'll do. I mustn't swear on the podcast episodes. Do you remember I talked about that some time ago? And a lot of you said, good, we don't want swearing. There's enough of that on the TV. There is. There's enough swearing on the telly these days. In the old days, you'd never get any swearing on the telly or the radio. It creeps in, doesn't it? Someone will say a naughty word on the television, and then it's said again, and then there's another naughty word, and over the years, over the decades, it all becomes acceptable, and before you know it, they're all swearing like troopers. Well, not quite. Why do troopers swear all the time? And wasn't there another one, he smokes like a trooper? Or was that something else, smokes like a chimney? A lot of these old sayings have gone, haven't they? That I find sad, because I remember the old sayings from my school days. He drinks like a fish. Do fish drink? I don't know, that's interesting. Do fish drink? I don't think they do. So why would someone drink like a fish? Daft, isn't it? And that other saying that I still can't find the meaning of or where it came from, well, I know what it means. I'll go to the foot of our stairs. That means you're surprised. You're astonished. Good grief. I'll go to the foot of our stairs. But why? Why go to the foot of your stairs? I don't understand it. You might as well say, I'll go and sit on the toilet. Does that work? Not really, does it? Oh, and I mustn't laugh. I'll start coughing. My cold is getting better slowly, but I mustn't laugh because it gets me into a coughing fit. The other day someone said to me, imagine if we'd had mobile phones when we were kids at school. This chap's same age as me. Would we have been on the phone constantly like they are today? I suppose we would have been. What would we have done if we had social media? Would we have been on that all the time, or would we be over the woods? There's a question. I would have been over the woods myself. I think the majority of children of whatever age, early teens, they would have had a mobile phone, social media. They would rather be on that, I think, than go and play around in the woods as I did. It's an interesting question, isn't it? I think whenever you bring in anything new, then kids will take it up. What was the Sinclair computer years ago? I remember my son, we had a Sinclair, and he was immediately hooked on that. And then I bought him a Commodore, was it? Yeah, the Commodore computer. And he sat at that for hours on end, which was good. He was 8 years old at the time, which turned out to be good because he's now got an amazing job in something to do with computing. I don't know what it is. He tells me what he does, but I don't understand. So I just say, oh, that's interesting. Yes, that's good. He comes out with all this computer speak, and I pretend I know what he's talking about. He knows I don't know. He knows I know I don't know, and I know he knows I don't know. There was one teacher at school, this has just come to mind, I don't know why. One Monday morning, we were meant to be in his class at 9 o'clock. We're all sitting in the classroom. He didn't turn up. 9:05, 9:10. Of course, there's riots going on at this stage, people fighting, desks going all over the place, naughty things being drawn on the blackboard. We had blackboards back then with chalk, not these, whatever they call now, whiteboards and screens and computers and I don't know what they are, projectors. And then the deputy head came in. Brr, he was an angry person. He's the one that caned me with his tickling stick. He was a miserable devil. I nearly swore again. I say I don't swear. I don't swear. Normally I don't swear. If I hit my thumb with a hammer, I might say crikey. And one kid dared to say, where's Mr. So-and-so? And the deputy head, he just said, he's not in today. I'm taking the lesson. Oh dear. We all looked at each other. Oh dear, oh, good grief, this is all we need. Oh, misery guts. Oh, tickling stick. And another kid dared to shout out, well, why not? What's the matter with him? And of course, his deputy head, he looked up. Who said that? Right, who said that? You, boy. He was mad. I think he hated the job. He hated us kids. He hated the job. I don't know why he did it. I don't know how he got to be deputy headmaster. I think he just liked caning boys with his tickling stick. But subsequently we heard at playtime that the teacher, he'd had a nervous breakdown. He'd gone off with some sort of mental problems. And he was blaming us. Well, not us in particular, but basically teaching at our school, all the kids and that. It just got him down and he ended up with a nervous breakdown. That's why he didn't go in on that Monday morning. It's quite sad, really, because when we first heard about it, we laughed, but we only laughed for a few seconds. And then I remember the little group of us, we all went quiet and looked at each other. And one kid said, that's our fault. And it wasn't our fault directly, it was the entire school. But that stuck in my mind. I remember going home that day. That stuck in my mind. That was our fault. That was because we were rude to him. That's because we used to play up and be bad. It wasn't that, obviously. I think what it was, we were the last straw. He'd not had a very good time. Someone said that his wife had left him. And us kids were the last straw. That's it. Broke the donkey's back. That's another funny expression, isn't it? I suppose that's because they used to use donkeys to carry straw and bricks. And one last piece of straw just tipped the balance and the donkey couldn't carry it anymore. Why am I talking about a donkey? It's a camel. The straw that broke the camel's back, not a donkey. Stone the crows. Interesting where these old things come from, these old sayings. But that poor teacher, there was another teacher. He came, and this is primary school. He came into the classroom after lunch one day, eating fish and chips out of a bag, a newspaper as it was back then. And because we were mucking around, he threw his... Did you hear that? That's Tricia on the walkie-talkie, telling me she's back in the house. She'd been down the shed, her gym. So he threw the fish and chips, the whole lot, at the window. And of course it splattered all over the window. There's chips all over the floor. One of the kids, whose desk was where the chips had landed, he's leaning over eating chips from the floor. And the teacher, he was mad. He'd lost the plot. He really had. And he was shouting, and another teacher came in and took him away, and we didn't see him again. Now that's when I was, 8 years old, so that was primary school. We didn't see him again, and word had it that he had had a nervous breakdown. Were us kids really that bad? It's worrying, isn't it? I remember on more than one occasion when school holidays were coming up, last day of term, I remember teachers saying to us things like, thank God I haven't got to see you lot for 6 weeks, and I'll be glad to see the back of you lot for 6 weeks. I think they hated it all as much as we did. I think I learnt more during school holidays than I did at school. There was a chap I knew, a friend of mine down the road. His dad was really knowledgeable. He seemed to know everything about everything. He wasn't a show-off. He was genuine. Whatever you asked him, he seemed to know about it. And if he didn't know, he'd find out and get back to you. I remember him telling me about his car engine. He was fixing the car. And his son and myself, we were looking, leaning over the bonnet, seeing what he was doing. And he explained it in such a way that we understood. And I remember asking him things that I'd heard at school that I didn't understand. I'd tell him, and he would explain it to me in a way that I understood it. The teacher, I couldn't understand what they meant. And you end up just getting called an idiot. Idiot boy. That was one of the teacher's favourite sayings. Idiot boy. Because you didn't understand something. Whereas this chap, he would explain it properly. I don't know. There we are. I just learnt more during the summer holidays than I did at school. I've just put my jacket on. It's not cold, but I don't know, it feels chilly. There's a wind out there. I've just been in the garden, made a cup of tea, brought that up here. It's chilly. It's not proper summer. It's June. Struth, it's June. Where is the summer? We seem to have this every year. Last June was rain. Right the way through June, nothing but rain. Oh, I was talking to a chap on the radio, amateur radio, the other day. He's up in Nottingham. He's moved over here from America. And he was saying, where's all your radio stations on the AM band? That's medium wave. That's what we call medium wave. And I said, well, there aren't any anymore. They've all gone. He said he heard, Talk Sport. He said all they do is talk about sport, which I suppose they would. He said you've got BBC 5 Live. All they do is talk about the news, which, well, it is. It's a news programme. He said, where's all the music? Where's your country and western programmes? Where's your reggae stations and all this? I said, we haven't got that. I said, we've got oldies. What is it? Greatest hits. What is it? Greatest hits radio. Or classic. I said, that's about it. Oh, you've got Radio 1. And he said, oh, I've heard Radio 1. He said, that's not on AM. That's only on FM and DAB. And I said to him, well, the AM band, medium wave, is dying out. Is it Sweden? Was it Sweden the other day I heard? They're closing down all AM stations, all medium wave stations. They're just finishing the whole lot. And he said to me, this chap, have you been to America? And I said, yes. In 1975, I went there. And I did listen on the radio, on medium wave. And there was station after station, whatever you want, country and western, old time, reggae, everything. I don't know whether it was reggae back then, I can't remember. But everything. You had, there's something, I'm dinging all over the place here. You had such a choice. And he reckons that you still have over there. FM is taking over a bit, but he said there's still a load of AM stations around. We've really been ripped off here in Britain, radio-wise, Back in my day when I took my transistor radio to school in my blazer pocket, the pirates came along, yes, in the North Sea, the ships, but apart from that, there was BBC Light programme. I know I've moaned about this before, but we really were ripped off back then by the government and the BBC. They wouldn't allow any other radio stations. The BBC, that was it. BBC was God. No one else is allowed on the air. And we just had no choice at all. Going back to CB, I wrote to the government when I was about, 14 years old. I watched these Lassie programmes with the kids on CB. And I wrote to the government and said, will we ever have CB here? Will you allow that? And I did get a reply. They said no. Basically, no, there's no need for CB. There's no need for it here. It's not necessary. End of. And of course, CB came along, didn't it? When I was, how old was I then? I don't know how old I was then. It was illegal at first, which made it absolutely fantastic. We all had illegal AM CB rigs. That was really something else. Of course, then it became legal and it all got boring. Well, no, not boring. It just got jam-packed with people playing music, shouting, swearing, misbehaving. It's calmed down now. I still listen on CB. It has calmed down. There's a few stations locally. A few people chat to each other. And it's all quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's not chaotic anymore. It's not a chaotic mess. It's quite civilised, really. The American chap I was talking to on the amateur radio, he said, oh, yeah, makes me laugh. He said, oh, your goddamn stations are rubbish. And I said, well, yeah, you're right there. I had to agree with him. And sadly, the television's not much better. It's all repeats. Saw that last year and the year before and the year before and decades ago. And that's a repeat from 1950. There are one or two things on the telly that we watch. We like Spring Watch. Trish and I like Spring Watch. They do Autumn Watch and Winter Watch. That's Chris Packham and Michaela Strachan. And they go round, where are they at the moment? Down in Dorset. Oh, Dorset. They don't speak like that in Dorset, do they? Why do I do that whenever I mention the West Country? Oh, I'll get my sore throat back again. Probably my fault for going oh. But they're down in Dorset and they're looking at badgers and red squirrels, all this stuff, all the wildlife stuff. It's really interesting. And that's on 8 o'clock every evening. Well, not every evening, because sometimes they take it off because there's something more important, like football. I don't do football. I don't like football. So they take my programme off to put football on. They've got sports channels. Why don't they use their sports channels? Why take mine? That's the BBC for you, though, isn't it? And that Chris Packham, he's great, but he's always saying, Look at that badger there, isn't that wonderful? That's what you pay your TV licence fee for. No, it's not. I don't pay my TV licence fee to look at a badger. I pay it because I have to. Actually, we don't have to. A lot of people have stopped paying it. Apparently it's quite legal to stop paying it, but we couldn't watch Springwatch. Maybe he's right. That's what you pay your licence fee for. I don't know. Email from Kenneth. Hello, Kenneth. Nice to hear from you. You live in London. He says, what's the price of a pint? Well, a pint of what, first of all? He wants to know what the price of a pint of beer is in various countries. So what do you have? Lager? Do you have real ale abroad? IPA? Stuff like that. Be interesting if you let me know. Raise rants at protonmail.com. It does vary here. A pint of lager at our club up the road there is now, what is it, £3.80? It might be creeping up to £4. That's lager. It really does depend where you go. The pubs are a lot more than that. They're £5, £6 for a pint. And that's down here on the coast, not London. So what is the price of beer like in your country where you are? What do you have in America? Bud? You drink Bud, don't you, over there? What do you have in Australia? It's not Foster's, I know. They try and kid us here. Foster's, g'day, cobber, the Australians' favourite drink. No, it's not. No one in Australia drinks Foster's, from what I've understood. They don't like it. And anyway, I think it's brewed in Belgium and shipped over here across the channel. Or is it brewed here in London? Nothing to do with Australia. They do lie, don't they, these people on these adverts? They lie. So let me know the price of a pint or whatever it is, a litre or whatever, where you are. And I shall tell everyone. I think Finland is expensive. Any Finnish listeners? I went to Helsinki once. Crikey, I thought when I went into this bar. They all speak English. Wonderful. And I said to the young lady, pint of beer, please. Oh, she said, we've got this one and that one and that. But she didn't speak like that at all. She was very well spoken, actually. She showed me the beers. I said, I'll have that one. I can't remember how much it was, but crikey, it was double, if not treble, the price here in the UK. Lovely place, Helsinki. Very clean, really nice place. Lovely people. When did I go there? 35 years ago, I think I went there. Really nice place, just very expensive. But I believe they get paid more than we do. Their salaries are better than ours. I don't know. We seem to have, apparently, allegedly, it might be a lie, apparently we've got the lowest pension, state pension, in Europe. And I might have misheard, but someone on the telly the other day said we've got the highest taxes in Europe. I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me. Just going back to American TV for a minute. As I said, we used to, as kids, love all the American TV programmes. And when I grew up a bit as well, what was there? Starsky and Hutch. I like Columbo. We've been watching Columbo recently. Absolutely brilliant. Peter Falk, he was wonderful, wasn't he? With his false eye. Bless him, that was brilliant, just the way he did it. And there was Hawaii Five-0, we used to watch that a lot. We had our own programmes. There were a lot of good British programmes back then. The Avengers, Steed and Mrs. Peel. Do you ever watch that abroad in America, Australia? Did we ship that one out there to you? That was good. Then there was The Saint with Roger Moore. Do you remember The Saint? The Professionals. That was that was Tony Curtis and Roger Moore. Was that I can't remember. But all these good old programmes, they've gone. We still get some American ones. Dare I say this, I don't like Friends. I've tried to watch Friends. I can't get into it. But I have been watching, I'm not sure what Tricia thinks. She gives me funny looks. I've been watching this, can't say, The Simpsons. Oh, don't, I'll start coughing. I've been watching The Simpsons, and it's actually quite good. I've never really sort of sat down and watched it properly before. I flicked through the channels and watched a couple of minutes of it, but it's really good. The Simpsons, you're probably all laughing now, thinking, oh no, that's it, he's got dementia. He's finished, that's the end. I like The Simpsons. I used to like Peyton Place with Mia Farrow. Gosh, she was nice. When I was in my teens, that was. When did that come out? I must have been early teens. I only watched it to see Mia Farrow. But that was a good programme. I like Peyton Place. I tried to watch it a year or so ago on YouTube. I started at episode 1 and I got to about 14, 15, and I don't know. I got bored with it. Things change, of course, don't they? And something else I have always loved is Laurel and Hardy. Trish, she just hates it. Trisha hates Laurel and Hardy. I love it. Stan and Laurel. All this slapstick stuff. I know it's daft. In fact, Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson in Bottom, apparently, according to Ade, he said that they based some of it on Laurel and Hardy. The way they would look at the camera. They just look at the camera and sort of sigh. That's what they'd started doing in Bottom. They'd look at the camera, look at us. What I don't like are these programmes where they talk to the camera. I forget, we got a programme on recently, some British thing, detective thing, I can't remember what it is. Oh, yes I can. No, I can't. Something about Whitby. Whitby Pearl. Is it Whitby Pearl with that lady in? She will look at the camera and talk to us. She'll say, well, I don't know what you think about that, but I don't think that's very good. And I'm thinking, oh, well, she's talking to me. I don't want her talking to me. Oh, dear. Doesn't work for me, but there we are. We are all different, fortunately. It was the Persuaders, wasn't it? Brett Sinclair and Danny Wilde, Tony Curtis and Roger Moore. What did I say earlier? The Professionals. That was another programme. The Persuaders. Who remembers the Persuaders? That was good. I used to enjoy that. Randall and Hopkirk. Oh, Randall and Hopkirk deceased, wasn't it? One of them was a ghost. Was he Marty White? No, I don't know who he was. Marty something. He was a ghost, and it was all rather odd, but it was quite entertaining. The Third Man, the Harry Lime theme. Do you remember that, Harry Lime? That was good. I don't know why I'm going on about TV programmes. This is supposed to be about school holidays. Well, we've done school holidays. What a ridiculous title, isn't it, for an episode? School holidays. I don't know why I came up with that. Oh, probably something to do with that email from Ray. Hello, Ray. About school trips, you know, in the morning. The roads are blocked. There's mothers everywhere. Yummy mummies. That's a dreadful expression. It's yummy mummies in their Chelsea tractors. They're all blonde and they've all got Chelsea tractors. Not like the mothers in my day. I remember my friends' mothers when I was, primary school, 8, 9, 10 years old. They look like old ladies. They look like they're in their 50s or 60s. They wear a pinny and they'd have rollers in their hair and a headscarf thing. Well, not always rollers in their hair. But whenever I went round a friend's house, I do remember thinking how old their mum looked. Whichever friend I went to, his mum would look old. I was lucky enough to have a young mum. She had me when she was 17. So, of course, I had a nice young mother. But a lot of the other kids, I think their mums must have had them in their 50s. No, not quite. Certainly 30s or 40s. But there again, perhaps that's not true. Perhaps they were in their 20s or something. I think people looked older back then. If you look at old photos, say a photo of your mum when she was in her 20s, this is if you're sort of my age I'm talking about, they looked older than 20s, didn't they? They probably looked like they're in their 40s. I've seen photos of my mum, even though she was only in her 20s. She looked old. She's probably listening to this. Sorry, Mum. But you did look old, Mum. There's no getting away from it. I think it was the coats, the overcoats, the grandma-type shoes, the hairstyles, headscarf. Everyone wore a headscarf back then. Pinnies or pinafores, aprons, house coats. Do you remember house coats? It was like a nylon dressing gown. And you do your housework in this nylon dressing gown. It's to save your clothes getting dirty or dusty or whatever. It is true about headscarves, though. Every woman had a headscarf whenever she went to the shops or wherever she went. She wore a headscarf. I'm not quite sure why that was. I suppose if they had longish hair, it sort of kept it under control. Do you remember hair nets? My old granny, bless her cotton socks, she used to wear a hair net. That was to keep her hair sort of in order when she was out in the wind. The idea was good, but it looked odd having a sort of net on your hair. Ina Sharples in Coronation Street, she always had a hair net, didn't she? I don't remember women in hair rollers all the time, such as Hilda Ogden in Coronation Street, always had rollers in her hair. And Nora Batty, last of the summer wine, Nora Batty, always had rollers in her hair. I don't remember that, unless women did that at home, took the rollers out when they were off out somewhere, I don't know. Then for younger women, was it the 60s or 70s, the big hair sort of fashion, big hair, all done up and sprayed with half a gallon of hairspray to lacquer the thing, because otherwise it would just all blow away when you went outside. Strange looking at the hairstyles over the years. The hairstyle I always liked on a girl was just long blonde hair. No frills, no, what is it, bouffant, no, what do they call it? I don't know what they call it. Page boy cuts and back combing, all this stuff. Just long blonde hair. As in the David Bowie song, with your long blonde hair and your eyes of blue, the only thing I ever got from you was sorrow. That's a happy song, isn't it? Don't know what the weather's doing. We've got this dreadful wind again. What have you got planned for this weekend? Well, you'll be listening to this on Sunday, won't you? Well, or next week. You don't always listen. 8 o'clock Sunday morning, the episode comes out. I'm sure everyone is poised. Finger on the play button. Is that right? 8 o'clock Sunday morning. Of course it's not right. You're having breakfast, aren't you? So what have you got planned? There's Saturday, yesterday. What did you get up to then? And what are you doing today? What are you doing any time? Let me know. raiserants@protonmail.com. Don't forget to look at the website, raiserants.info. And if you want to send me any links or anything of interest, photos of whatever, I'll add them to the website. Perhaps we could have a listeners page. Pictures of your garden or your favourite spot in the woods or down the beach, wherever you live. I made a little video of our garden the other day because several people have said, have you any photos of your garden? So I thought I'd make a little video, but it was a bit naff. I looked at the video, I played it back, and I thought, no, people don't want to see that. There's our sweet peas, look, and there's the aubrietia, and we got nasturtiums there, and I thought, no, people don't want to see that. When I went to California in 1975, people said to me, take photos of things that we don't see on the telly. Don't take photos of American cars, we can see them on the telly every day. Don't take photos of well-known places in Los Angeles or San Francisco. Take photos of things that we don't see on the telly. You know, go around the back streets, go to places that aren't on the telly. It was a good point, actually. And I think that's, from the emails I get, that's what people want to see. When I put on photos of places in Britain, you don't want to see just a road and a Japanese car or a Korean car. This car's made all over the world now. You want to see things that you don't see on the telly when you live in America or Australia, wherever you are in the world. You don't want to see things that you can see on the telly all the time. So I'll sneak round the back streets. No, I won't sneak round the back streets with my video camera and make little videos of things that go on round the back streets. No, I mustn't do that. Not that there's anything wrong with our back streets, of course. I must have a look online and see what sort of historic places are in and around where we live here in West Sussex. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to churches again, but things of interest. Several people have said about the war, any wartime things here. We've got Tangmere. Over at Tangmere, there's an aerodrome. They used to call them aerodromes, didn't they? A lot of RAF planes flew in and out of Tangmere way back in the 40s. We have been there. We've been there a couple of times, I think. So perhaps I'll take my little recorder over there, tell you all about Tangmere. You can look that up online. Of course, these days you can look anything up online, can't you? Get photographs of the church I've just been to. If you go online, you're bound to find it. So you don't really need me. Well, I shouldn't say that, should I? I'll be redundant. We've still got all this election nonsense on the radio, the TV all the time. 4th of July is the voting day, so it'll all be over by the 5th. Apparently our Prime Minister went to the D-Day, is it in Normandy? He went over to France in Normandy, and he cleared off early. He had some TV interview booked, so he cleared off early and left all the other world leaders there, which is a bit embarrassing for Britain. I saw Joe Biden doing his speech about the Americans and their part in the D-Day, the landings and all that. That was quite interesting. But yes, our chap, what's his name? Rishi Sunak. Do you know, I don't even know, is it awful? Rishi Sunak. So our chap cleared off early. He had better things to do, it seems. It's not funny, it's embarrassing, really. Once he'd gone, then all the world leaders met and did whatever they did, while he was back here, I don't know, messing about, doing a TV interview. Who would want to be a politician, a president, a prime minister? Who on earth would want to do that? Our Rishi Sunak chap, and him and his wife, they're multi-billionaires. Why not retire, just enjoy life? Why do all this? I've no idea. I would hate to be a politician, especially Prime Minister. Whatever you do, you'll be moaned at. If you don't do something, you'll be moaned at. I just don't know what the point of it is. I'd hate it. It must be some ego trip they're on because they don't need the money. Well, our chap doesn't. Multi-billionaire, stone the crows. Anyway, enough of that. If you've any ideas of where you'd like me to go in West Sussex, if you know of somewhere, a military site or something, I must have a look. We are going to Pulborough Brooks, I hope next week, this coming week. I think I've told you about that before. It's a wildlife place like wetlands in Arundel, similar to that. And it's up in Pulborough. And we'd never even heard of it, let alone been there, so we must get up there. We were going to go last year and didn't get round to it. So we're going to go up there. I'll take the recorder with me, just in case there's anything interesting to talk about. But as I said, I must find some military places or something a little more interesting than wildfowl wetlands places and churches. Just down the road, in a village called Ferring, just west of here, on the seafront, there's a thing they call a pillbox. That's from the wartime years. It's a big concrete block, and there's a way in. I think there's a way in at the back. And there are kind of holes where you can stick guns out and shoot people on the beach if they're misbehaving. Well, no, they don't shoot people on the beach now, but they would have fired at the enemy coming up the beach from the sea. And that was open for D-Day. Apparently they'd opened it up, and I was going to have a look because a few of my friends went there with their amateur radio gear, and they're talking to people across the water on Normandy Beach. They'd set up a radio link. But I had this dreadful cold. But that might be worth having a look at, that sort of thing. A pillbox. Look it up online, then you'll see exactly what it is. I think they call them pillboxes because it looks like a big pillbox. In the old days, of course, they'd keep pills in boxes, not in these tin foil things that you have to squeeze the tablets out of. As I was saying before I went on about the pillbox, if you know of anywhere, let me know. I'll go and have a look. Perhaps take a few photos and take my little recorder with me. We've been to Lewes Castle. Who's interested in castles? Anyone? We went to Lewes Castle some years ago. There's Arundel Castle, of course. I think there's Bramber Castle. Actually, Bramber Castle, I might be wrong. Look that up. There's nothing left of it. I think there's just a wall with a window in it, and that's it. There's no real point in going to ruins like that. Well, I suppose it's interesting if you're standing there, if you're actually on the spot. But not just to see photographs of it or me talking about a wall. What's that? Well, that's the castle. Well, it was. Anyway, let me know, and I'll see what I can do. I hope I haven't bored you too much. Sorry I've got this cold. It really is a pain up the... What's that word I'm looking for? Oh yes, pain up my nose, that's it. Great talking to you, as always. Hope you've enjoyed it. I love talking to you, as I said earlier. I love talking to you. I'm getting a bit rough now in the throat department. I can hardly breathe at times. Trish has got me all sorts of squirty things. You squirt things up your nose and squirt something else in the back of your throat, and I don't know. I think they work. I've got various tablets for different things. I've sort of taken some of them. I think they work. I'm not sure. What did they do in the old days? Do you remember? I think I remember my dad doing this. He'd have a bowl of boiling water or steaming water with stuff in it like eucalyptus and all sorts of weird things, and he'd put a towel over his head and lean over the bowl and breathe in this steam. I don't think it did any good. Probably did more damage than good. Trish has bought me some Vic Vapor Rub. I meant to put it on my chest. I'm not doing that. It stinks. Do you remember that, Vic's Vapor Rub? And she's also bought me a stick, a plastic stick with a hole in the end, and it's got some Vic's stuff in it. And you stick it up your nose and go... It's meant to clear your nose. All it does is burn the back of my throat. Right, that's enough of my aches and pains and illnesses. No, I'm fine. It's almost gone now. I should be fine after a couple of beers. Now, there's a thought. I've gone on long enough. Behave yourselves. If you can't, then don't get caught and all that nonsense. What else? Oh, yes, some people wanted the seagull changed. You know the seagull at the beginning? They want that changed. So we'll have to have a vote on that. Would you rather have seagulls or wild birds singing away in the woods? That's what people have been asking for, rather than seagulls. They are a pest. No, I won't go on about that. They were talking on the TV the other day about seagulls. They take your chips out of your hand and your ice creams and your burgers when you're walking along the seafront in the summer. Well, to be honest, you shouldn't be walking along the seafront eating fish and chips and burgers. But if you do, the seagulls will come down and attack you and take your food. So let me know on that one. raiserants@protonmail.com. Do you want the seagulls or the wild birds in the woods? That's it. I will leave you in peace. Take care. See you on Wednesday. Bye-bye for now.